Hello, everyone. Today is Thursday, November 16th, 2023. We are meeting on behalf of the CAPZ Cluster API Provider Azure project. CAPZ is under Cluster API, which is a subproject under SIG Cluster Lifecycle. As such, we abide by the CNCF Kubernetes Code of Conduct. So please, thanks in advance for being kind to one another. Raise hand to speak. We'd love to hear from all voices. And without further ado, I will pause for a moment to see if there is anyone present who would like to introduce themselves. I don't see anyone unfamiliar, but I'll pause. All right. Good to see all of these friendly faces. Okay, so let's get straight to the regularly scheduled program. First thing is we're going to go straight to the agenda. All right, awesome. And first on the agenda is David with AAD pod identity deprecation. Take it away, David.
Yeah, this is just well, now that Cecile proved it, I guess it's a kind of an official thing of some sorts, although this is just documentation, but this is also a shout out for if anyone has any concerns about officially deprecating and removing the pod identity options with CAPZ. In the past, we just not too long ago got workload identity lit up, but you technically still can use pod identity. And so I wanted to, give a shout out in case anybody has any problems or concerns with that. So effectively you would have two supported mechanisms. You'd have the general service principal and workload identity would be the two kind of high-level options for functioning. I know the docs could use even more help, but this is kind of the first step. So once we do the 1.12 release, the thinking is we would also put that on the release notes saying, hey, if you're using pod identity for anything, it's not going to work in 1.13. And then in between after the 1.12 release and for the 1.13, we would actually remove like the actual code option, have some means of, returning an error or something back to the user, something hopefully meaningful that says, hey, this is not supported anymore or something like that, so that they can, have a better experience ideally than just things just breaking and having to debug stuff. Go ahead, Cecile.
Yeah, sorry if I was a bit too quick on the trigger here. So I just put it on hold. So if anyone wants to take a quick look that way, you have a chance. But otherwise it's approved and you can remove the hold when ready. I just thought it'd be good to get that merged so that we can include it in the release, because it will be, if we're still planning on releasing today, that we can talk about that after. But since the book the book is pinned to the latest release, if we don't merge this before the release, it won't be part of the book. So just wanted to accelerate thing, and I thought worst case we can always iterate on it. But yeah, in terms of breaking changes, I have been thinking of some ways we could remove our usage of AD pod identity underneath without making it breaking for users. But we can talk about that as part of the 1.13 release planning.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah,
Ashutosh?
Yeah, I had taken a look to this PR, so I'll just walk through it and LGTM it. Thanks for the doc PR, David.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also just a side note. I wanted to also put in, in the workload identity thing that like a little note about managed cluster, because I think some people aren't maybe aware or realize like, oh, if I'm deploying an AKS cluster, I can use the workload identity integration there. But yeah, I think there'll be a number of things we can do after 1.12 to help make the workload identity story. I know you have one PR out there, but I think there's a number of other things, docs, and I think there's other things we can do to help make things better for people. If nothing else, clear, right? In documentation. So go ahead, Ashutosh.
Yeah, I really did not try workload identity with like the managed cluster, and I saw a PR from one contributor that had some APIs on workload identity. I've been reviewing that, so it also makes sense if somebody else who has more context on like managed cluster can help with that.
Cecile?
Cecile?
Yeah, if you could share a link to that PR, that'd be good. But what I was gonna say is, I did have some good chats at KubeCon, with the pod identity and Azure workload identity maintainers. I think we might want to revise our strategy or approach of putting workload identity everywhere, even on management kind clusters. So that's something we can again talk about, but I think we should have maybe a more separate focused discussion when once we're past the 112 release about how do we want to handle this moving forward. But I think I've started talking about this with David a bit, but I think a valid path forward might be supporting workload identity and service principal of identities. And then whenever you're using an Azure cluster as your management cluster, it's really easy to enable workload identity like an AKS cluster. But if you're using kind, then probably using a service principal is still the best option, as long as you're not using deprecated AD pod identity libraries. So I think we need to move all the essentially current AD pod identity service principal stuff to do what the manual service principal does right now, and then just have those two options. So yeah, just food for thought. But I'd love to chat a bit more deeply about this with you, Ashutosh, and others at some point.
Yes, makes sense. Yeah.
Cool. Great conversation.
Yeah, to respond to, I did see this PR that you had there, Ashutosh. This is really just lighting up the other features that could be there on AKS. The point two there is, you know, complementary to the story for sure. But yeah, there are ways, and there actually already are ways right now with a certain PR where you can set up the OIDC issue or URL, which is kind of the foundation for things. So yeah. I think the workload identities on the workloads is the most important thing, right? But we definitely need to have an easier path for the management clusters, because I think like what Cecile's alluding to, like having the service principal route, I think is going to make things a lot easier to get people going. And I think there's secure paths we can have for that. But yeah. Okay.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Ashutosh.
I do. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, since we're talking about workload identity, I just wanted to tell that I'm trying to modify the existing end-to-end tester workload identity after Cecil's and Will's review comment on the PR that I've been doing. And I'm facing a weird issue there where I'm trying to create a Kubernetes secret encompassing the public and private key, and it's not allowing me to do so. It complains that it is not a valid PEM format or something like that. But whenever I put that, the key pairs into the YAML file after taking its base 64 decode, it just gives up a warning and it goes through. So I've asked for help from Anis. I'm really not sure what would be the right way to do that. So just in case, if anybody knows, I put a message on the CapG channel also.
Cool. It doesn't seem like anyone here knows. Anyone watching the recording, head over to CapZ Slack and help out. Ashutosh. So bringing it all back to the original topic, it sounds like the key thing that we want this PR to do that David put together is to help, especially new users coming to the project, reading the book, who are interested in pod identity, to make sure that they use the right path. They don't use a deprecated product. They may not know about deprecation. And it sounds like it's still possible in CAPC to sort of stumble into using AD pod identity. And so this documentation reinforces the guidance to not do that. So that's great. Okay, cool. All right, thank you for taking notes, Cecile. And speaking of Cecile, you're up with the second agenda item.
Thanks. Yeah, this is more of a PSA. So there's a change that merged the week before KubeCon that I was working on with the cloud provider folks to essentially migrate all our templates that test Kubernetes CI to use the out-of-tree credential provider. So this is for example, like before there was a flag for ACR, Azure Container Registry credentials, and that was pointing to the Azure.json file in the templates, but sorry, I'm not making sense. That was in the kubelet flags. That has been deprecated and is now replaced by out-of-tree credential provider at the Kubernetes latest version. And so we migrated all the templates to use out-of-tree. And then this is kind of a follow-up issue from that. There was basically the way that the cloud provider stores this like config YAML, they have it in their repo. The issue is that when they're testing their own PRs right now, we're getting the config from the cloud provider Azure repo upstream remote instead of like the PR itself, so that it essentially can't find the YAML because it's trying to look for a commit that hasn't merged yet. So this is a PR that fixes that. It just merged, I think, and I tried to cherry pick it, but there was some conflict. So I think we need to do some manual cherry picking. But yeah, that's just a PSA that's going on in the background. Shouldn't affect any of the CAPZ tests, but this is to unblock the cloud provider folks.
Are there any cloud provider test signals that we can use to validate?
They're very red right now. Let me
Okay, cool. So this is something we'll monitor after the release, after we rev the branch to release -112.
No, so I'm not going to wait for that. I'm going to cherry pick it to 111. So they don't have to migrate to 112 to fix their tests because all their PR tests are blocked.
Cool. So, but that hasn't been done.
No, so that's what so I try to cherry pick it, but the bot failed to cherry pick. So right after this meeting, I have to go and actually do the cherry pick manually. But yeah, we'll post
unblock. 1.11. And then later we'll talk about whether or not that's going to happen today.
Yes.
Actually, and very related to that is going to be what Willie has to say about the cluster class PR, which is blocking the release. So Willie, you're up.
Yeah, I mean, not too much to say. It's just a PSA that it needs a little bit of a final review. Cecile gave it a review yesterday, and then all the comments have been addressed, and all the tests are passing. Yay! Also, John left a final review or gave an LGTM like earlier or last week. The only changes so far was to fix the E2E test. So yeah, it's basically has 2 LGTMs, but not really. So yeah, it just probably needs one more review from someone. And I think we're releasing later today. I think Cecile will talk about it later. So I think this is in a good place to merge very soon. Just needs like one more review.
Cool. Are any of these resolved, Willie? Could you go do the boring housekeeping work of resolving those, or those optional review
comments? So actually I'm not super familiar with like how the new line shows up in like GitHub, because it says it's outdated and changed, but it still shows up as like a new line. Cecile, can you like verify that they have actually been changed. Yeah, Cecile.
Yeah, I can take another look, but just usually when it says outdated, it means you've changed that line and the comment is just left over. So you can just click resolve conversation. But I'll
Yeah,
take,
like my question is like if you go to the diff, it still looks like there's a new line there. So I don't know what
oh,
the
I see.
issue is.
Let me check it out. I mean, I would just assume that's an IDE thing, CRLF versus.
Because like if I delete the new line, it says like there's no new line at the end of file, and I'm not sure if that's what it's supposed to be or
Which file was it?
it was in templates.
No, it's gone now.
Oh, it was in
It's not there
templates,
anymore.
not Azure Dev.
I think the one we were looking at was Azure Dev.
No, it
So
was
that
it
you
was
can, I'll just go ahead and resolve that right now.
No, it was in a different file.
This one right here is
Oh,
resolved.
this one, sorry. There was another one that was above it.
Yeah, I think there are a couple new line comments.
You can just click on the file, I think it'll take you there.
Well, if it's outdated, it's not going to take us to where we want to go.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
I resolved them. It's just the comment is showing outdated. But yeah, I'll take another look after like this morning. Is anyone else planning on reviewing this today or just me?
It sounds like it would be beneficial to review this right after the meeting just to get a little bit more confidence. So I'm happy to do that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
yeah, I just want to make sure like I don't have to make any more changes before I squash, so I don't like cause all the tests having to be run again. So
Can we skip the squash part and have the CI do that for us?
Sorry, I'm assuming I'll make 1 or 2 more changes, so I'll probably need to run all the tests again anyways, but
Cool. Yeah, go ahead and do those and then ping us when we can review. So that puts us probably at least in the best case scenario at like noon for release. So I think, are we ready to talk about that? Yeah, cool. So nice segue.
wait, so do you want me to squash right now or
Well,
wait for another review?
I
Yeah,
think
I'll
while we're
squash.
having a conversation, you can wait, but after this meeting wraps, I think that would be the first thing I would do, so that we can get a review as quickly as possible on the current latest state of things. If you've got changes you want to make, and I'll be super quick so that if you need to consider even more changes, you can make those and then resquash, so we can start the end to end
Sure.
as soon as
Thank you.
possible. My experience yesterday suggests you're going to need an extra hour and a half to retest. So that means we're probably 3 hours away from best case scenario. But that's great. We've got 2 LGTMs on that. Willie, the functional requirements are there. So I think we should expect that is going to land early afternoon. The only thing I would want to look at is, I haven't looked at test grid recently. Do we want to just quickly, because I know some significant changes landed yesterday, and I haven't followed up with the periodic tests overnight. So let's see how some of this stuff looks. So specifically, AKS has some changes. That's a bummer. Okay.
So that's not fun because that's the
That's
managed.
that's one of the things that I was trying to fix
Yeah.
in 2.4. And it's also flake. Let's just clarify the timestamps here. So, oh, actually, this one ran before 2.4 landed. This is the only post 2.4 run we have. Interesting.
But it ran on PR, right?
Yeah, the same test did run on the PR. Let's do just a little bit of manual sanity checking there. Okay, so I'm gonna do this. So bear with me, folks. I know this is the matrix here. What I want to find is where it bailed out. Okay, here, cool. So let me go to the PR, not this one. Let's go to the commit history. Okay, and to be clear, so this ran at, is this UTC? Oh, PST, that tells me right there. So this ran almost at midnight yesterday. What I was referring to is this PR. This PR landed at like 5, I think, 4. We've got other things that are landing, but because it's tags, it just seems so obviously related. So I'm going to just assume that there's something going on here. And I want to look at the PR CI history for the AKS test on the PR itself. Okay. Okay, so if I compare this matrix output, the other one, yeah, okay. So what I want to, whoops, what I want to see is that. I wonder if there's some concurrency stuff going on here. Okay, so this is this equivalent place in the flow, and we definitely progress past this. Okay, cool. Let's just quickly, so this is the point where I am in my brain. I have confirmed that with a 2.4 version of ASO, we have a passing AKS test. So now I'm going to just double, triple, feel free to interrupt me if there's some other ideas, but I'm going to just triple check what these commits are that landed after, because the periodic test ran with this as well. I don't think this is related. Strictly speaking, this is I don't know exactly what's going on here, but this doesn't seem like something that would affect the outcome of those tests. Let's see. And that's it, because this landed after the periodic job began, so we don't need to worry about that. Okay, since there's no way to manually nudge a periodic job, I can volunteer 1 cycle to do that locally in my environment. You can run this job. Go ahead, Cecile.
Are can we use the PR signal as are we confident that the PR signal and the periodic jobs are the same job? They're just triggered in different ways.
Well, it would have to be an approved PR because it would have that it ran in the last 9 hours, because it would have had to only an approved PR would do the run on top of latest main. So that's the only thing that we would have that would have an equivalent sort of runtime. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Well, I meant anything that merged after, like for example, the last one that just merged, that would have been open after that last merge.
That's true. I mean,
The one
unless
above,
there was a hold on it and it ran before.
the one above the last PR that merged it was open overnight for us.
Okay,
So
cool.
it wasn't open yesterday. So I'm pretty confident that would have run with the latest.
Cool.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
this ran with AKS and it ran at 1:23 a.m. and you're saying that yeah, that would have been, there's no way that this wouldn't have included that change, right? Because this is the last PR that ran before the merge, which necessarily means that it was rebased on top of main.
Right.
Cool. So yeah, this definitely passed, and let's see if we see the same progression. Right. Okay. I would like to understand why that failed, just because I'm taking this over from John, and hand wavy ASO 2.4 was deemed a requirement before we ship AKS plus ASO because of an issue with the way that tags are deleted. So it just seems unfortunately coincidental. So I'd like to figure out where in the what this means with this test. The success. I've lost. Oh, here it is. Like I'd like to know what is going on here, so I can do some investigation there. And in fact, I'll focus on this. Maybe Cecile, you can give one final pass to Willie's PR. Willie, I feel confident that between John and Cecile, you're not going to ship a PR that hasn't been reviewed at a high quality level. So, okay, so let's talk about 112 with all this information. So, Willie, you're going to jam on the cluster class because that's definitely a blocker. We don't want to release without that. Is that correct? Can I get a thumbs up on that?
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll have that landed by early afternoon. Between now and early afternoon is a few hours. I'll have some sense of what the risk of this is. I'll be able to run maybe at least 2 tests in 3 hours with AKS, maybe 1.5 tests, because they take a while to run. I can also open up a dummy PR to test this in CI and see what that tells us, just to get as many sort of like runs in as possible. And then in the meantime, I'll look into this and see where this bug goes. So by early afternoon, I should have I should have some material information to share with the community that should inform release. So if that is a green light, and if Willie, your PR lands and everything looks good, then I think we can begin the release in the afternoon. And I think that that's a viable plan. I don't think it takes like 6 hours to release. Go ahead, Cecile. You're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just gonna say, the test does a full Kubernetes upgrade. So if you skip that locally, you'll be able to run it a lot faster. So you can skip every test spec except for the tag spec. It should be equivalent, unless there's a specific thing that's causing the issue only after we've done. So
yeah. I probably won't do that, just because like you say, I'm not confident that the particular side effect we're seeing here isn't to a certain extent a result of a very specific serialization, because we're doing a bunch of things in serial in the test flow.
That's fair.
And I won't be able to be confident about that in the next 3 hours.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Cool. So in terms of the release, I can also start prepping I think we need a PR to add the minor version to the metadata YAML stuff. So I can start doing that. So we're ready to go this afternoon. And then I'm available to pair on the release or drive that. So yeah, maybe we should start a Zoom in Slack and we just huddle in the afternoon.
Okay, cool. And once I get set up with testing, I'll have some cycles, stuff will be running in the background. So definitely ping me for PR reviews of those housekeeping steps we have to do, and I can lend an LGTM.
Sounds good.
I would like to pose to other folks not named Jack or Cecile how this plan sounds and get some thoughts. Does this make sense? I would classify this as an aggressive but sensible release plan. Are we comfortable with the aggressive part of it? Cool. Yeah, I think we've got all the automation in place to tell us when we can't release. So definitely a non-zero chance that triggers and we don't release today. But I think that if we end up releasing today, it will be under will be under appropriate risk circumstances. We're not taking any shortcuts, I don't think. All right. Okay, I think we're at the end of the agenda. Go ahead, whoever spoke.
Yeah, I think it would be good to just go through the milestone and just make sure we clean things up. I started doing that, but it would be good to just before I just start switching stuff, just to make sure we're all on the same page here.
Could I actually propose that we postpone that to optimize for the amount of stuff? Because that's something we
Okay,
can
sure.
do after the release. I agree with you. That's not the best
So-
habit in terms of.
Well, yeah, so I think just as long as we know that if the cluster class PR is the only thing left we have to merge, then yeah, we don't have to cover it. But yeah, just
Or if you want to just do that async and just
yeah, I can.
knock everything to next or whatever the process is now, except for Willie's PR. I think
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I
that's
just
fine. And
wanted
then the PRs that are part of the release process, they can get retroactively tagged.
Yeah, that's totally fine. If maybe Cecilia, you could add a 113, that'd be nice because I don't have permissions to do that, and then that
Yeah.
way.
I'll do that right now.
Cool. All right, sounds good.
Okay,
Go team.
go fight win. All right. See everyone online. Thanks for coming. Bye, folks.
Listing.